The year is 1925. India is under the oppressive rule of the British Raj. A group of young revolutionaries, inspired by the ideals of freedom and justice, decide to challenge the mighty empire with a daring act of defiance. They plan to rob a train carrying the money bags of the British government and use the funds to buy arms and ammunition for their cause. They call themselves the Hindustan Republican Association, or HRA, and they are determined to liberate India from colonial bondage. This is the story of the Kakori conspiracy, one of the most remarkable and controversial episodes in the history of the Indian independence movement. It is a story of courage, sacrifice, and betrayal that shook the foundations of the British Raj and inspired millions of Indians to join the struggle for freedom. The Kakori conspiracy was conceived by two of the most prominent leaders of the HRA, Ram Prasad Bismil and Ashfaqullah Khan. Bismil was a poet, writer, and activist who had been involved in several revolutionary activities since his youth. He was the chief organizer and strategist of the HRA and had a charismatic personality that attracted many followers. Khan was a close friend and associate of Bismil and a devout Muslim who believed that Hindu-Muslim unity was essential for the liberation of India. He was an expert in explosives and firearms and had a fearless and adventurous spirit. Bismil and Khan realized that the HRA needed money to buy weapons and explosives and to expand its network and activities. They decided to target the number 8 down train, which was traveling from Shahjahanpur to Lucknow, and which was known to carry the money collected from various railway stations to be deposited in the government treasury. They chose the village of Kakori, about 16 kilometers from Lucknow, as the site of the robbery, as it was a secluded and wooded area with a sharp curve in the railway track. They recruited 10 other revolutionaries to execute the plan, including Chandrasekhar Azad, Rajendra Lahiri, Sachindra Bakshi, Keshav Chakravarti, Manmathnath Gupta, Mukundi Lal, Murari Lal Gupta, Banwari Lal, and 2 others whose identities remain unknown. They also arranged for 2 informers, Rajendra Nath Lahiri and Sachindra Nath Sanyal, to provide them with the details of the train schedule and the location of the money bags. On the night of 9th August 1925, the revolutionaries boarded the train at different stations, disguised as passengers. They carried pistols, knives, and bombs, hidden in their clothes and luggage. As the train approached Kakori, Lahiri pulled the emergency chain to stop the train. The revolutionaries quickly overpowered the guard and the driver and broke into the guard's cabin where the money bags were kept. They looted about 8,000 rupees, which was a huge amount at that time, and threw the bags out of the window where their accomplices were waiting to collect them. They also fired some shots in the air to scare away any potential resistance. The whole operation took less than 15 minutes, and the revolutionaries escaped without any major injury. However, one passenger named Ahmed Ali was killed in the crossfire between the revolutionaries and the guard. This was an unfortunate and unintended casualty, which later proved to be a major setback for the revolutionaries as it turned the case from a simple robbery to a murder. The Kakori train robbery sent shockwaves across the British administration, which was stunned and outraged by the audacity and boldness of the revolutionaries. It launched a massive manhunt to arrest and punish the culprits, and deployed thousands of police and army personnel to track them down. It also offered a reward of 1,000 rupees for any information leading to their capture. The revolutionaries, meanwhile, dispersed to different parts of the country and tried to evade the police. Some of them managed to escape to foreign countries such as Nepal, Afghanistan, and Germany, while others went underground or changed their identities. However, many of them were eventually caught, either by the police or by the informers, who betrayed them for money or under pressure. The British government decided to make an example of the Kakori conspirators and to crush the revolutionary movement once and for all. It charged 40 people with various offenses, ranging from robbery, murder, conspiracy, sedition, to waging war against the king. It appointed a special tribunal headed by Justice Hamilton to conduct the trial, which began on 21st May 1926 and lasted for over a year. The trial was a farce and a mockery of justice, as the tribunal was biased and partial, and the evidence was fabricated and manipulated. The prosecution relied heavily on the confessions of the informers, who had turned hostile against their former comrades. and the testimonies of the police officers who had tortured and coerced the accused. The defense lawyers, who were mostly Indian nationalists, tried their best to expose the flaws and contradictions in the prosecution's case and to highlight the patriotic and noble motives of the revolutionaries. They also appealed to the public opinion and tried to mobilize support and sympathy for the accused. The trial attracted widespread attention and interest, both in India and abroad, as it became a symbol of the clash between the British imperialism and the Indian nationalism. The revolutionaries, who were mostly young and educated, impressed the people with their courage, dignity, and eloquence. They used the trial as a platform to express their views and ideals and to justify their actions. They declared that they were not criminals, but freedom fighters who had acted in the best interest of their country and people. They challenged the legitimacy and morality of the British rule and demanded the right to self-determination and independence. They also expressed their solidarity and affinity with the other oppressed and exploited nations of the world and called for a global revolution against the tyranny and injustice of the colonial powers. The tribunal, however, was unmoved and unimpressed by the arguments and appeals of the revolutionaries. It delivered its verdict on 6 April 1927 and sentenced 17 of the accused to death, 12 to life imprisonment, and 11 to various terms of imprisonment. 4 of the accused were acquitted due to lack of evidence. The verdict was met with shock and outrage by the Indian public, which considered it to be harsh and unjust. It also sparked a wave of protests and demonstrations, both inside and outside the country, demanding the commutation of the death sentences. Several prominent leaders and personalities, such as Mahatma Gandhi, Motilal Nehru, Madan Mohan Malaviya, Sarojini Naidu, and Rabindranath Tagore, appealed to the British government and the Viceroy Lord Irwin to show mercy and clemency to the condemned revolutionaries. They argued that the execution of the young and idealistic patriots would only alienate and antagonize the Indian masses and would harm the prospects of peace and reconciliation between the two nations. However, the British government was adamant and determined to carry out the death sentences, as it wanted to send a strong and stern message to the revolutionaries and their supporters. It rejected all the petitions and pleas for mercy and upheld the verdict of the tribunal. It also transferred the prisoners to different jails to prevent any possible rescue or escape attempts. The first 4 revolutionaries to be hanged were Ram Prasad Bismil, Ashfaqullah Khan, Rajendra Lahiri, and Roshan Singh. They were executed on 19th December 1927 in different jails amid tight security and secrecy. They faced death with courage and calmness and shouted slogans of Inquilab Zindabad, Long live the revolution, and Vande Mataram, Hail the motherland, before being hanged. They also left behind their last messages and poems, expressing their love and devotion for their country and their hope and faith in the future of their nation. The execution of the 4 revolutionaries was followed by a massive outpouring of grief and anger as the people mourned and honored their martyrs. Their bodies were cremated or buried with full respect and reverence, and their ashes or graves were visited by thousands of people who paid their homage and tribute. Their names and deeds were immortalized in the annals of the Indian history, and their memory and legacy were cherished and celebrated by the generations to come. The Kakori conspiracy was not just a train robbery, but a turning point in the history of the Indian independence movement. It was a heroic act of resistance that challenged the might and authority of the British Raj and inspired and awakened the spirit and consciousness of the Indian people. It was also a tragic saga of sacrifice that exposed the cruelty and injustice of the British Raj and aroused and intensified the demand and struggle for freedom. It was a saga that shaped the destiny and identity of a nation, and a saga that still resonates and reverberates in the hearts and minds of the people.